Chapter 6. Near midnight, Nikolai finally lay on his bunk, his feet hanging over the end of his bed, unable to sleep. His mind raced at the strangeness of his new surroundings. Again, Nikolai was overcome with the remoteness of the place and the very simplicity of the camp. There were no prison walls, no barbed wire, and no guard towers. The guards didn't even carry guns. The very nature of such a prison defied all logic of what could be and should be expected in the place. There was obviously a chain of command from the top on down, as Nikolai was soon to learn. The warden oversaw the prison camp and reported to government officials higher up. Below him were the immediate officers in charge of the various functions of the camp. There were 4 junior officers. One was in charge of the guards, and therefore indirectly the prisoners, and a second was in charge of work detail units, and so it went. And prisoners also answered to a pecking order of sorts among their own ranks. Those who had been at the prison camp the longest appeared to have seniority, but not always. If a man was big enough, strong enough, or intimidating enough, he could gain power and prestige among the prisoners. But no matter the status of a prisoner, escape was out of the question. Nikolai was sure of that. Even in warm weather, to attempt such a thing seemed utterly foolish. Food, for starters, would be a problem. Even if one could evade the guards who would no doubt be sent out as a posse, how much food would one have to carry in order to survive the march to civilization hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away? Nikolai knew that wild creatures lived on the open plains, but he had seen very few of them. Reindeer herds ranged the open country, and he had observed while on the moving train, but Nikolai doubted that a lone man on foot with no weapons would be able to catch a reindeer, no matter how desperately he tried. Of course, there were the tundra wolves, Arctic hares, snowy owls, and many types of lemmings and mice he had been told lived in these parts, but all of them were considered unclean according to biblical standards. Nikolai knew that even if he could catch them, he would never be able to bring himself to eat that kind of meat, no matter how hungry he might be. The idea of escape was ludicrous at best, and what was the point anyway? They were all in this remote location together. Warden, camp officers, guards, and prisoners. In order to survive the harshness of such an environment, each must do his part. Even if there was a pecking order, they needed each other. And that would have to be enough for now. It was all he could hope for. Here he was in this remote spot in the world, and there was no one he knew, no one to care what happened to him. There was no one, it seemed, to whom he could speak of loneliness. His fellow prisoners would have to be his confidants and cronies. They would have to be his friends. But even so, he tossed and turned, trying to fall asleep. His mind began to panic and scream out in protest. How did I get myself into this? Please, Lord, he heard himself begging in whispered tones. I pray that my time here will not be in vain. May you use me to speak to the other prisoners. May they see Jesus in me. If I can bring the gospel to them and let them see Jesus in me, that would be worth the pain and disappointment of having to be here. Let me be a witness to the guards, Lord. Though they mistreat me, let me bear their insults and abuse as you did, without complaining. Let them see that I am different, that the peace of heaven is on my face. And the warden? He's a Russian officer schooled in the ways of the military. In his world, there is no God. Please, Lord, Make him know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you exist. If I can be that person to help him see you and your saving grace, I would be honored and willing to do that. Nikolai began to feel the sweet peace of heaven settle over him. It was like a magic potion that had infused his entire body. His prayer in that prison cell and on the train had been that God would be able to use him wherever he happened to be, wherever God could use his service. Lord, help me keep up my courage and let me be faithful to you in the church I love, he breathed. Here I stand. He quoted the famous words from a book he loved. I can do no other. May God help me. Amen. Somewhere in the twilight of the midnight sun, Nikolai finally slept, and then it was morning.